Hi, everyone. Welcome to the very first call of the working group for the merge request report widgets. It's a mouthful, but it's going to be a great one. And first of all, first order of business, I just wanted to welcome everyone. It's very exciting to finally gather this group of people to attend to this topic that we've had a love-hate relationship over the past years. But everybody's very invested and caring about doing a great job here. So it's very exciting for us in Code Review to have all of you help in improving this area. So the first thing that I had was I haven't seen everyone on the channel, so I wanted to raise that there's a merge, there's a channel for widgets, and there's a channel for this working group in particular. Since this is the one that is on the merge request and it's been there, let's gather here, unless we should rename the other. I'm not entirely sure what the other channel exists for. Anybody know? The MR widgets.
That was used for the design process. We can merge these. I think that makes a ton of sense.
So should we rename that one? Okay.
It's probably easier because we have so many people already in there, and all of them should have a stake in it and should be informed, I think.
I can take that action because I have to rename the one I created so that you can use that name. So I'll take that action point to rename the MR. Sorry, I have to rename that and I'll reach out to the owner of that. So I'll take care of that action. So thank you. First action point. Look at that. Awesome. Right, I'm moving on to the discussion items. Please feel free to add your points, questions, concerns to the points below as we're speaking, so that we can have a worthwhile discussion. Yeah, in the first order of business, I just wanted to check everybody's thoughts on about this meeting. How often should we meet? Should we meet weekly to start off? Should we meet every 2 weeks? It doesn't stop us from having more informal gatherings throughout the week. But as a regular catch-up for the whole group to meet, what are people's thoughts on frequency?
Probably up front. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was going to ask, how did it work in the past with other working groups?
The ones that I've been, we've met every 2 weeks, but those were more, I don't know, better specified. I think this is a lot of work to be done, to be discussed in the beginning. So I don't know. What about other people's experience with other working groups?
I haven't been in a working group before, but I was thinking up front, probably weekly, and then we can start spreading it out, since there is so much to discuss up front to figure out what we want to accomplish.
All right. Anybody wants to be the note taker? Because anybody wants to step up as a note taker?
I can take notes. I like it.
Thank you, Diana. All right, so that's that. And as for the length of the meeting, 30 minutes, okay? Should we extend to 60 minutes? Right, 30 minutes it is. I see a lot of nodding. Cool. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, there's one particular topic that I would raise here, is that one of the team members, Daniel, he's in an APAC time zone that he can't attend this meeting. And I was wondering, I know that a lot of us are in this time zone, it's convenient for us, but should we try to make one attempt at doing an alternative? Should we just make sure that he's in the loop with the agenda and recording? What do you think?
I'm going to voice my comment here. I'm not opposed to that. I think it's also important that we keep an agenda, just notes ahead of time, so that everyone can participate. And also in case, you cannot join that day, but you still want to be part of the discussion.
It's a very good point. I'll make sure that Daniel, I've already mentioned this to him, but that he can add his points that he would like to have the team discuss, even if he's not here. But do you mean that we should still have a secondary alternative time slot or not, or no?
I'm not opposed to that. I'm not sure
Okay,
how others
not
feel.
opposed. Right. Anybody object to trying to find a time slot that works for the majority, including Daniel? So if nobody objects, we'll try to find a time slot. I'll reach out to Daniel and have him try to propose a time that works for him and the majority of the team members. And I'll ask Daniel directly to take care of that. Cool. All right, moving on. Right. So the most immediate action that we should take is materialize this working group into the handbook. And I'm assuming that everybody has taken a look at the business goals, at the context of this, and I'm sure there's probably questions about some things, but what's missing from the merge request for us to be able to merge that addition? Hannah?
Yeah, so I was reviewing it today, and apologies if you're spammed. I just applied. I found a couple of typos, so I had to fix that. And in my point of view, I think the main change I would like to propose is that we specify as part of the business goal that the working group will not own the whole implementation, right? But facilitate that and help the stage groups, and especially the stage groups that are assigned today to the merge requests widgets as part of the Q3 KR for product and design, that they are able to move forward that, and that we serve as, not as gatekeepers, but shepherds. And that I think also will help us stay more in line with the goals for this Q3 KR for product and design, that is to deliver, well, all of the widgets. I think we have 10 today, by the end of October, I think the end of Q3. So that was my comment. And I see, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to ask that OKR you mentioned, I've seen so many OKRs from Verify and from Product UX. Is this like to design all of the widgets, or like that this is excluding implementation, is it?
It's everything as far as I understand it, right? So I see Marcel nodding his head.
Yeah, it does include all of the widgets.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. Definitely. I'm guessing you made a suggestion about adding that. So my let me actually voice my thought on that implementation inclusion. Is that the state of the code right now, it requires a good deal of work to first support the UX framework, and second, all of the specificity of all the group widgets will be specific to their own groups, and the level of effort to do that might vary. Some of them might be simple, some of them might be more complicated. And one of the reasons why we wanted to have a working group about this topic is that we don't forecast to be feasible to rewrite every widget with a high level of quality, supporting the UX framework within 3 months. So I don't know what that means for that OKR in particular. We will definitely do our best to support orchestrating the decisions and orchestrating where the direction of the code, who updates the code and everything. But rewriting every report widget until the end of October, from the engineering perspective, sounds difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is wonderful about our OKRs, right? They are very ambitious. And I think the biggest question we right now have ahead of us is really, how will this go? Will we spend a lot of upfront time on the component, creating that strong component? Will we spend more time already trying to implement these, to already have some things checked off for the OKR? But I would honestly say, especially with the engineering allocation and so many things moving around, let's make sure we create a strong foundation. Let's make sure we create something that will be easy to implement for other teams, And then if we end up with an OKR result that's not ideal, we have reasons for this, but we probably want to really make sure this component is a strong one that will be easy to extend and will be easily able to adapt for other teams.
Yep, that makes perfect sense. I think the answers to those questions, we have a technical discussion area on the agenda, and we're going to be starting to drill down explicitly about those technical decisions that we have to make. That I'll postpone that discussion to the point later. But yeah, I think that we can help that to answer those questions. Hayana?
Maybe we can cover my question with the technical discussions. I think I'm thinking if there are any low-hanging fruits for UX, right? If we're focusing on the core, the foundation of the component, what could we be doing, for example, in the meantime, in regards to the UI, to the polish off, for example, copy, or things that don't necessarily involve the redesign of the reusable component, or building that thing.
Yeah, I think the great role that UX will play is insisting in the decision and reviewing. So as we're making the decisions, some of those might affect what's the UX in some ways. So I think you're going to play a huge part in assisting those decisions and assisting by reviewing the work that we're doing. And coming back a bit to Marcel, I expect there to be like an overlap of two threads. One is updating the core component, and the other is every group leveraging that core component to rewrite their widgets. These don't have to happen sequentially. It might be best that they don't, so that we can have real world scenario like load testing the core or testing the limits of the core extension. So I think that's going to be happening too. Cool. Any more thoughts here? So we'll go through so going back to Hayana's top point, we'll go through her feedback on the MR, and after those discussions are resolved from her, and that will be okay to merge. Anyone else have any other concerns or needs that we need to check before we merge? We can always, again, iterate, of course, but cool. All right, that looks good. Looking forward to merging that one. So I don't see any other point of the agenda. Phil, you got the next point?
Yep. So this was done, I did some work on an extension type thing a few months ago now. It's essentially the same sort of base component that we can update. It allows us to create a very basic looking widget that we can just extend. So for the code wise, we just have to register a widget. A register extension, sorry, which just accepts basically an object of a set structure that we can change slightly. I wasn't expecting the widgets that were designed to be kind of a bit more different. So this doesn't support different designs at the moment, so we will need to update that slightly for different teams. Yeah, I don't really know what you want me to show.
Yeah, that's good. I think one of the things to highlight here is this is where we're starting from, and as you can see, it has already a separation between fetching data for the collapsed state and for the expanded state, which is beneficial for performance. But this is very naked, so to speak. So the first initial effort will be dressing it with all the UX framework, amazing work that the UX team has done, making this and the styling of this support those rules, so to speak. That's going to be the first effort. But then you also need to know specificity or specific things that certain widgets might do that are not supported by this widget. We're going to have to, not supported by this core component, we need to extend it. That's kind of like the gist of what we wanted to show. So questions, thoughts, how does this make you feel?
So most of the current MR widgets, oh, can you hear me?
You're a bit low. Yeah.
I'm a bit quiet.
Low, yeah, quiet.
Take
your time.
Come back.
Okay. So we'll leave Mark's question for later. Anyone else has thoughts or questions?
I have a still formulating the question in my head, so let me try it out. When you say that these specific scenarios, right, they still need to be covered by the widget, do we know the number of scenarios? Do you know the complexity of the use cases that are going to be needed to be, they're going to need to in the reusable component at this point?
At this point, probably all of them. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know the answer, sorry.
I think just looking at it, it looked like a good majority of testing team owns like quite a few MR widgets. A good majority of our widgets would probably just be able to use that because it's just straight up like, hey, this is the title and here's a list of stuff. But then we have, you know, the test report. I think also with there's a security report that has nested collapsible sections. There are ones that have like different icons. I'm not sure how this current extension handles icons and stuff. So there are like a couple things for more complex widgets, but for the most part, like we have a few widgets that would be able to switch over now, I think.
Yeah, I understand. Thanks, thanks, Scott. Indeed, when I think of the testing widgets, there are a couple of instances that don't really show a lot. Yeah, and I think that would be a good place also for us to start. And I'm asking this because last time I checked in with James Heimbuch, the product manager for testing, we wanted to look into what are the most, not just the most used widgets, but what are the widgets or the merge request areas, right? And for testing that after we redesign will have the highest impact for customers. So not only look at, yeah, the technical feasibility, but just delivering value based on what we discover from the usability investigation for the merge request areas. But thanks, that clarifies my question.
Yeah.
And I do expect there to be design adaptations, correct? So as they extend, right? I'm sorry if I missed, the internet dropped, I apologize. But as they exist now, so that they can comply with the UX framework, there's probably going to be some UX adaptations, correct?
So when we did the framework, we asked every team before, make sure you cover all cases that you currently have. We even have, for example, status checks that didn't exist when we started the effort. And we tried to make sure every single state is covered by the framework. I have also linked the Figma file in the agenda again. I can quickly also show it here. This should be an overview over like a generic, more kind of state. And here are all of the different instances that we have tried to put examples for together to make sure we cover really how each of them looks. This is probably the most comprehensive resource for seeing all of them and seeing the different states and seeing how they differ. I could expect that there might be one or two states we just haven't seen, we just haven't yet had on the agenda. I hope that with a bit of luck, maybe we will even have everything 100% covered in the framework. We really asked each designer and each team to go in multiple times. And so if something was overlooked, then it might be something that's really deeper hidden or that's really a big edge case.
So what I'm getting from that, Marcel, is that if we focus our engineering efforts on supporting the UX framework, we should be good.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's great news. Great job, team. That helps a ton.
It's been an amazing effort by the entire design teams and their groups for a long OKR. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, Mark, can we go over to your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Good. Technology. I think this question maybe has already been answered in various ways in various places, and it may be relatively uninformed. But my question is, most, if not all, of the current widgets use the same underlying architecture or structural component, the report section, and a few others as well. And they allow for quite a bit of variation via slots and things like that. And that affordance of variation is kind of why we're here. And that's what we're trying to limit. But there's the balance of, what features we actually want to support, but we also want to enforce consistency. So how are we sort of planning on balancing that? And I suspect the Figma file that's linked below my question kind of somewhat answers that by just enumerating everything we have, right? So if just to follow up, if a new merge request widget comes up or a change is needed to an existing one that requires something that's not supported in the framework, would we have to have a quick discussion of, do we want to have it this way? Do we want to build support for that? Or do we actually want to push back and say, no, it needs to fit in this? Is that what we'd be hoping for?
So I think, especially for new ones that get created, they follow the UX framework. If there's a very complex one that already exists, that wants to offer something new, that wants to pilot something that doesn't yet exist, we can absolutely negotiate about like how that's going to go down. Will the team have to contribute to the framework? Will they maybe stray off from it? But I hope, because we have done this in a framework first approach, that teams later on will rather contribute to the framework and use that to build new ways to expose information instead of going away from it again.
Yeah, Marcel, 100%. And I think part of the outcome of this working group is to specify a process for that. Like for an engineer who gets assigned a work to add something to a report widget, this isn't supported by the UX framework. It isn't supported by the core component. What do I do? Talk to this person, make sure that there's UX proposals validated. I'm spitballing here, but add the feature to the core component and then use it. So there will be an iterative approach for that. That's what I'm expecting. How do you feel about that, Mark, by the way? I know that it might feel restrictive at one point, but how do you feel that coming from where we are right now, that we have slots and we have some freedom?
I think what you spitballed was what I was hoping to hear, to be honest. It's what I had in mind. My only concern really is that, it's fine to have a process written down, but I can still see something like maybe getting merged without having gone through that process, and then we end up back here kind of thing. So I guess we really need to make that foolproof, or that's not the right word, but so robust. That you can't robust, so you can't accidentally skip it.
Okay,
kind of thing.
Okay, we'll definitely work on that. And Kai, you're adding a point?
I am. I was going to say the merge request has a process for contributing now. So this is new, and many teams potentially aren't aware, but new-ish. So MR widgets, as part of this working group, as part of the work that Tim spent a lot of time doing, are one of the things that will be documented. And so the way we think about this, and we being the code review group, is that if you are contributing things to the merge request and there's a framework defined, you're welcome to stay within the bounds of the framework. But if you leave the bounds of the framework, we expect you to come and talk to us. And so that's documented. So I would expect that if you want to do something that the widget does not support, once this working group wraps, and that sort of finalizes this framework, that a group would need to come and talk, and that would be product managers and designers, even before it even gets to engineering, should have a conversation. So we'll be a lot stricter, hopefully, on giving groups that freedom in the future.
Yeah, I just had one more thing. Yeah, and my comment is that maybe the report widgets process could be a subset of this. We can work it out. I was going to propose that we nominate 2 DRIs for this particular topic so that we can create an issue for devising a process for anything that might be outside of, and this is for the long term, it's not urgent, to make sure that it doesn't get forgotten. And does anybody want to take this as something under their wing?
It should be the natural artifact. If you look at like the handbook page, it links already to the epic, which is the epic for all of the work that this group is doing. So it should be producing the output of this, which should be like the Figma file and the guidelines that go into pajamas are the expectation of sort of what that would be, which a lot of that exists, I think, already.
Yeah, so wouldn't we have a specific process for this area of the code? That's what I'm thinking that we should have. So we're going to be more strict in terms of how do I handle this? But okay, we can discuss that probably asynchronously or another point because we're running out of time. Right. Any more thoughts here? Thanks, Phil, for setting up that demo. Yeah.
I was just going to say, Andre, I would be willing to look into that a little further because one of the things I struggle with is conceptually, is the framework going to be as rigid or is it going to rely slightly on people to be respectful of the framework, if that makes sense? So we have these ideas in principle and we want people to abide by them, but then at the same time, is the code going to be as restrictive as the framework is? So that's something I would love to look into.
Okay, so I would suggest just creating an issue or something to track that effort, and then we'll just gravitate towards it. It might be that we don't have to do anything else, just we point to that process, or it would be great to have some other pair of eyes scrutinizing that and see if it applies.
Sounds good.
Cool, Tim, thanks. That concludes the discussion items of the agenda, and we have 1 minute. Should we postpone the technical discussion for next week, or is there anything urgent that we need to discuss right now that is blocking you? Right, so we'll postpone that discussion for next week. We'll start off with that one instead. Just the gist of it is that we're looking for volunteers to start breaking down the work, but we have some important questions that we want to nail. So what I would recommend is if you have questions about technical aspects, please go into this issue and leave the questions so that we can discuss asynchronously and work from there. Cool. Rihanna?
Yeah, you just said what I wanted to say. Like,
I'll type.
Let's start async, especially for testing. And I know Scott and Miranda are here. It would be awesome if we also could give James some sort of not a timeline, but yeah, just some idea of where we are in terms of the technical discussions. So I can also align with Jackie with the verify PM leadership.
So I'll move my questions that I added here to threads into that issue, and then this is going to be probably a duplicate from the other implementation issue we had, but I feel like these are very laser focused on implementation decisions of the code in the context of the working group. So let's do it there and start. Please add your questions there as threads so that we can keep it contextualized. Right, we're over time. Thank you so much for attending the first. I'll make it repeating, all that stuff, change the Slack channel, all good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Great first edition.
See you.
Bye.